afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our commercial seminar. Turn the obstacles of market yield into an opportunity for significantly greater income when a normal market returns. Today, our speaker is Terry Moore. And we also have Q&A section after Mr. Moore's presentation. And every one of you could input your question in the chat box, which is at the bottom of the screen, all right? And the class will be recorded. Mr. Lee, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Talia. Today we have the honor of having Mr. Terry Moore to be our speakers, and I'm going to give a little bio on Mr. Moore. Ms. Moore's team has closed 500 plus income property transactions. 90% of his apartment listing closed, which is a county-wide rate. So he's doing a lot of work to close all these transactions. He helps real estate investors on a financial choice in the next decade. All his 15 groups of investment has made money for his investors, and you cannot say much more than that. And he himself managed the ACI apartment portfolio. So credit to him. San Diego Association of Realtors selected him as the inaugural winner of Commercial Investment Broker of the Year. That's quite an accomplishment. He's San Diego's only broker to have won the Triple Crown. That's horse races, for those of you who don't gamble on horses. Of Investment Brokerage, Dealmaker of the Year, Transaction of the Year, and the most prestigious CCIM of the Year. And I know that Education Committee wants some of you guys to acquire CCIM designations, and he has got the CCIM of the Year. Mr. Moore also taught on the national CCIM faculties. He's published a book titled Building Legacy Wealth, How to Lead a Life. His articles have been published in national, state, regional, and local magazines. Kilimanjaro. So you're only, what, 60-year-old now, Mr. Moore? Kilimanjaro. I'm going to do something a little different. For those of you who wants to let me know Kilimanjaro is, which country it resides on, I'll give you a prize at the end of this session. So just type in the chat box and let me know where Kilimanjaro is. And Mr. Moore also took up triathlon. He's married to Sandy, husband of 43 years. So my prize, I've decided, is Happy Meal at McDonald's. So for those of you who have kids or grandkids, you can take children to McDonald's. You learn something from this lesson and you won a lunch prize. So let's take out your pencil and paper, pay some attention, and let's learn this together. Here's Mr. Moore.
So thank you. It's an honor to be back. Whatever I've done is only important to the extent that it helps you improve your situation. Traditionally, I like to do pretty interactive. I'm not going to be able to see you quite as much, but with the chat box, you'll be able to give me some feedback and we'll move forward. So my objective is I would like for 3 of your best years to happen in the next 4 years. So the government would say that we're not in a recession now. I don't know what the truth is for you, but in San Diego County, apartment transactions are about half of what they were last year. And office is probably less than half. Retail might be less than half. But we're in a lull. So if we could do something together where in the next 4 years, you had 3 of your best years ever, would that be worth your while? I hope so. So I'm curious. I have silver hair. I started this when I looked like Howdy Doody when I had no silver hair. So I'm curious, how many of you can, on some of these, you can tap into the chat box if you want. How many of us have survived the Great Recession? How many of us have survived 2 recessions? How many of you remember the Resolution Trust Corporation?
Right here, you can see.
Okay. So she's teaching me about how to see what's in the chat box. That's Erica, who is the brains behind the operation and making this better than it would be without her. So I won't ask how many of you have survived World War II, or how many of you were doing real estate in the Great Depression. Let's just say that things are hard and they're probably going to continue to get harder. So if we want you to get even better in the next 3 or 4 years, how should we use our time? Maybe we should talk about ChatGPT, artificial intelligence. It's not going to replace everybody. It's just going to replace those who don't use ChatGPT, artificial intelligence. Well, that's a scary thought. I hate it when my dental hygienist says, you don't have to brush all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep. Well, maybe we should talk about how do you select a coach to help you become the $1 million broker? How do you find the people who coach $1 million brokers? Maybe we should talk about how you get virtual assistants, how you should become a social media royalty, how you become a guru and that kind of stuff. Maybe we should talk about how you should master Olympic level sales skills. Those are all interesting topics, and maybe they will be covered in the future. I'm going to suggest a different way to look at this. And I'm going to suggest that we look at things that will increase your chances that you invest in the right things. So in our craft, people come and go. People are coming into the craft now, and you know people who have already left the craft within the last year. Unfortunately, some of the people who have signed up for this class won't still be active in real estate in the next year. When we have an official recession, the attrition rate will go down. So in our time together, I'm going to talk with you about a tool that my coach calls the wisdom of the ages, my brokerage coach. So I can see me on the screen, but you guys can see the slide. Okay, so there's a philosopher who I admire, a fellow named J.I. Packer, and his notion is wisdom is the ability to choose the highest and the best goal. And it's not just the ability to choose, it's the inclination to choose the highest and the best goal and the surest means of attaining it. What I'm going to talk about, if you looked on the internet under quadrant 2 time, you would find more than 1 million hits on this particular topic. And I'm going to suggest that your time use is certainly worthwhile. Big truths are too important to be new. I wish I had invented this. I'm not that smart, but I recognize this is valuable. So in World War II, Dwight D. Eisenhower was the general who was in charge of the NATO forces, and he was going to attempt the biggest amphibious landing that had been done in the world at the time. Very complex, lots of personality, lots of weather. Guess what? The people who held the continent weren't welcoming the Allies, but he made it happen. And part of how he made it happen was because of the tool that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to suggest to you that your attitudes affect your actions. If you believe that you can, you'll probably do it. If you believe you can't, you probably won't even try it. And your actions have a big influence on the outcomes. So far, that's nothing revolutionary. But I'm going to suggest that focusing on your input is going to be more important than focusing on your output. Many of us would like it if we were a little bit fitter, or maybe a lot fitter. And some of us have said in the past, I'd like to lose X pounds. And maybe we said, I'd like to lose 10 pounds in 2 months. And focusing only on the output, I'm going to suggest is a third-rate goal. I think more valuable is focusing on your inputs. What's within your control? You can't control people's behavior, but you can control what you do. So if you learn your calorie count, how much you're ingesting, that makes it easier. People who can count say that there's 3,500 calories in a pound. So if you cut your calorie below your maintenance weight by 500 calories a day. And if you ate more fruit and less desserts, that would make it easier. And if you substituted herbal teas instead of sugary drinks, that would make it easier as well. So if you focus on the things that you can control, that will increase your chance of getting a good result in terms of the end. So I'm going to suggest focusing on your input is the better way to do this. So I'm going to ask you to start with a piece of paper. Get a tablet, get a piece of paper, and draw this rectangle. So I want you to draw it what you would call landscape, not what you would call portrait, but you want the wide side, the long side across the top and the skinny side up and down. And this is going to talk about your time use. And I'm going to ask you to number it this way. So top left is quadrant number 1. Those are things that are urgent and important. The people that you've been talking to for a while have said they want to sign a listing agreement. That's urgent and important. And then on the far right side are things that are urgent, but they're not important. Planning to build your team in ways that you're not yet good would be urgent, but not important. Would be not urgent, but would be important. In the bottom left are going to be things that are urgent and not important. Answering an email from somebody you don't particularly know might seem urgent, but not necessarily important. That's in bottom 3. Bottom 4 is not urgent, not important. That's responding to a spam call. So those 4 quadrants, that's going to be our presentation. Not complicated, just powerful. So top left is urgent for both those 2 boxes. Right is not urgent for the bottom. The boxes on the left are urgent. Boxes on the right are not urgent. Boxes on the top are important. Boxes on the bottom are not important. This is a tool that for most of our purposes, I wrote this, I designed this so that you could use it for your brokerage business. Candidly, you could use this for anything in life. The last time my brokerage coach did this, turned out one of the people in the audience, mom was in assisted living. She had fallen for the 2nd time, and the daughter was focused on how do I take care of mom? And in that situation, the daughter used this tool to plan how to get a better spot for mom. And mom was probably going to live a couple extra years because the lady used this tool for that. So you could use this for a variety of things. And our purpose, I'm going to talk primarily about business goals, but you could have business goals or career goals, or you could have personal growth goals, or you could have health. It could be emotional health or physical health or spiritual health. Tool that you use any way you want to. But for our purposes and the examples that we'll cite, we'll talk about as if you're using it for your brokerage business. So let's look in the top left. What do you think of as urgent and important? Let me have some of you answer in the chat. This is where it gets interactive. When you fill in the blanks, this is where you're going to make it relevant for you. So in terms of, So in terms of the slides, everybody's going to get a, thank you. Everybody's going to get a copy of the slide deck. And at the end, everybody's going to get a couple of extra slides that we think might be valuable. So you're all going to have everything that you see. So what are examples in regard to your brokerage business that are urgent and important?
Said marketing.
Marketing, good.
Getting more exposure.
More exposure. 68 people signed up. Probably hope we have more than 2 opinions, right? So when somebody asks you to do an opinion of value, preparing the listing presentation would be a good thing. But when you've done the marketing and people email or call you or carrier pigeon,
The CRM system.
all right, your CRM system, you want to maintain contact with the folks that you want to serve. Escrow closing, and there's a problem with the loan. Generically, these are the things you're making hay while the sun shines. These are the things that you're going to do in a default setting. Some unpleasant thing came up as a result of the physical inspection or the title issue, things that could cost you a transaction. Those are urgent and important. In one sense, a lot of us have had 3 years where we've done really well. There were cheap interest rates with a huge demand, and a whole bunch of us did a lot of business in the last 3 years. So this is something that we know routinely. We love this. These are high-class problems. These are the kind of things we love to do.
Someone said get to know more experienced loan agents.
Okay. So when you're trusting the service provider, whether it's the mortgage broker or the escrow person, you want to have an A team to serve your clients. I'm going to go to the next slide. So we've looked at the upper left. Now let's go to the upper right. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. Okay. So now we've got urgent and not important. Or pardon me, not urgent, but important. So this is the one that I want us to focus our time on. What would be examples of things that are urgent? You know you should do them.
Not urgent.
If they're not urgent, you know you should do them. They're important. But you could blow them off if you wanted to.
Branding.
Okay, branding, all right. Keeping a promise to your beloved.
Checking back old leads.
Right, follow up with the people who've trusted you in the past or shown interest in the past. Any skills that would help you that you're not yet fluent with? How about tools? Does anybody in your arena use ChatGPT effectively? Are you one of those people? The enthusiasts of artificial intelligence say artificial intelligence won't eliminate everybody.
Someone says getting on top of most updated forms and regulation.
Right. But people who don't use artificial intelligence might be among those who used to be in our industry. So using the right forms, that's good.
Laws.
Being awake and alert about how government is changing the playing field. So are you working on the most logical set of clients? Is there a nearby client that's just outside your bailiwick? Is there something in the near adjacent? Is there a specialty that you're not yet a master at, but with a little bit more skill or training that you might be able to? Could you be working with a bigger dollar amount for a clients who have more properties? My coach challenged me to pick a relatively small number of people who had a relatively large impact. And I'm on the 7th version of identifying those people. Roughly every 6 months, we try to find some more people who are likely to do transactions with us or open to doing transactions with us. And every week I eliminate a few people because they've said one way or another, we're not going to do business with you. You know, we have a relative who's in the craft, or we're going to keep it forever. So if you're refining your target market, well, I'm going to invite you. This is the most important part of the presentation. I'm going to invite you over the next week to continue to think of things that are important. Maybe you have a to-do list. Maybe you have annual goals. Some of us would like to be a little bit healthier or a little bit more skilled at, or make fewer mistakes in a certain field. Somebody who I admire is now taking emotional intelligence classes, already proficient, already effective, but this person who I admire is enhancing her skills even more to become a better version of herself. Okay, so we looked at things that are important, that are both urgent and not urgent. So let's look in the bottom left-hand part of the screen. So there we're going to look at things that are urgent, but not all that important. Has there anything come up with your family or people at work or social media that seems urgent, but might not be important? But what would be examples of those kind of things? Maybe you've all got it together. Maybe you're not distracted by these kind of things. What gets you off track? What distracts you from things that you think are important? Erica, you have any comments that are worth talking about?
No, sorry, I wasn't thinking. I was trying to saw something. Urgent, not important. Is learning different tools available, master utilize, AI for captions, automated text messages.
You get spam calls on your phone at home and or at work. The phone rings and it's Google calling saying that their records indicate that you haven't updated. Maybe some of your Facebook friends keep you posted on their life. All right, well, again, this can be a fill in the blank kind of thing. I would invite you to think about, before you go to bed tonight, think about what things took your time, what things kept you from finishing your to-do list, what things interfered with your making a presentation or getting a listing or getting an offer or getting an offer out. And think about what's urgent, but doesn't put money in your purse or in your pocket. People do time tracking and they break their day into 5 or 25 different categories. And every 5 or 10 minutes, they look at what they've done and then they see, how did I use my time? And then they use that to figure out, is this the best use? The Weight Watchers, they invite people to track the food that you ate. Somebody who I care about says that she never nibbles, and when she visits us, she seems to graze a lot, but she doesn't write her food down. And so she's kind of amazed that she's 20 pounds above her target weight because she doesn't know it's good for her. She doesn't write it down. So examples about things that are not urgent and not important. Just in case any of you have ever wasted time on anything, what might go into this category? Have any teenagers who you don't think are using their time well?
Automated text messages, movie time.
You've never done this.
Let's spend time watching TikTok,
Yeah.
Facebook.
I hope you've never done this, but sometimes when I'm anxious, I do things that are activity generating, but not goal achieving. They might be tension relieving, but they might not be goal achieving. Fortunately, none of us are on Oprah. But when you're honest with yourself, I would suggest that this is a category where you could kill these time wasters, and this would give you a chance to recoup. Lots of people say, I don't have enough time. Well, we've got 168 hours a week. You get to use it the way you want. Those of you who want to be healthier or emotionally or physically or spiritually, there are things that might be in your life which are not urgent, they're not important, but they steal time that you could be using in other ways. Again, I'll let you fill in the blanks. Not important that you tell me what your snags are. It's important that you know what your hot buttons are. Okay, so this is a slide that you're going to end up with. This is a slide that you're going to have for your own use. And let's go a step further. So in the first category, that's when you find a $100 bill on the ground, pick it up. When somebody that you've been marketing to, when they text you or call you or carrier pigeon, they show up at your doorstep, they walk into your office and say, I think you're the best agent in the galaxy and I want you to list my property. That's section 1. That's urgent and that's important. You make hay while the sun shines. So the second category is strategic. And A few years ago, I hired a coach. My business more than tripled. I wasn't any more special or smarter or better looking. Heaven knows that's the case. But my coach encouraged me to stop fritting away things. The coach gracefully, in love and in truth, said, looks like you've been coaching. It looks like you've been coasting. And I was chagrined, and the coach challenged me to do some fundamental things which I hadn't done much of. The coach wanted me to network. Oh, poo. There's a small part of the market, and I think networking is a waste of time. Well, I tried some networking, and the coach wanted me to be involved in more deliberate presentation, more deliberate presence. And I already had some experience, and the coach said, now you need to be doing more. You need to convince your ideal client that you are somebody they should talk with. And then the coach also said, call people. A cold caller? Well, no, it was a warm call. But the strategic things tripled my income. I didn't put in more time, I actually put in less time. But it was the section 2 time, doing what was not urgent, but extremely important. So my challenge to you is to use at least 20% of your time in this quadrant. The most strategic person I know alive today runs a national coaching organization, and he spends 20% of his time managing his business and a big chunk of his time doing his business. But one day a week, he does nothing but not urgent but important things. And his business has grown by more than triple. He pays $25,000 a year to be coached by Tony Robbins. Most of us would find $25,000 a year coaching bill a lot. Some of us would use that for 3 coaches. But he's had outstanding results because he's strategic. He had a couple of Amazon bestseller books that didn't come easily, but they were strategic. Okay. Item 3, quadrant 3, urgent but not important. Those are prosperity killing distractions. Those are the leeches in your life. They seem important, but they keep you from making your cash register ring. And the last 4, bottom quadrant, not urgent, not important. That's simply waste. That's folly. Don't gamble. Don't drive through the red light drunk. Those are things you know. I don't need to tell you that. But to the extent that you and I stop doing the bottom things or lessen the bottom things, it gives us more time to focus on the strategic things. My suggestion, my experience is if you use 20% of your work time in quadrant 2, good things will happen. I think your success and your significance will increase. In my tiny little practice, my teammate Erica knows that I've identified some key clients, and both Erica and the rest of the team get a bonus when I spend more than 20% of my time reaching out in deliberate contacts, face-to-face meetings or phone calls, live conversations with real people who can do big business, not answering the call that somebody wants, especially outside of mine. And when you use more than 20% of your time in the important but not urgent, you'll find yourself less frustrated. And just in case you've ever spoken in your head to yourself and condemned or admonished or fussed at yourself, you'll probably find that diminishing. Okay, we're reaching the exciting conclusion. We'll soon have your brilliant answer, your brilliant questions. So I'm going to ask a favor. Unbeknownst to you, this is the 3rd speech that I prepared for your group. in the last 6 months. My first two ideas I didn't think would really be worth your while. They were kind of interesting ideas, but I didn't think they would do you as much good as what you've been exposed to. Whether you use it or not, I don't know. I'm going to ask you to do me a personal favor. I'm going to ask you to write down your calendar, electronically, paper, however you do it. I'm going to ask you if you'd let me know whether this did any good for you. And if it does you good, I'll be thrilled. My hunch is you'll never buy or sell an apartment building, so there probably won't be any money associated with it. But part of my life now is trying to build up the people around me, the people that I care about. And you're going to get a bonus. So I write a blog. I've written a book of Building Legacy Wealth. It's available on Amazon, and you may or may not buy the book. But I've written a couple of hundred blog posts, and 3 of them are going to come to you through your association of realtors. And maybe you'll find the blogs interesting, and maybe you'll sign up for them. If you do, cool. And if it doesn't float your boat, I understand that. So that's my favor, is if this has done you so good, don't just tell me it was a wonderful speech, but tell me that in a couple of months you've been able to use this tool. You've probably heard of it some before. The question is, one of my coaches says, I don't care what you know. The market only cares about what you do. So being smarter and lazy, that doesn't make me wealthier. But applying what I know, that's wisdom, and that's your wisdom as well. So, appreciate your time. In one sense, since I couldn't see you, since we weren't interacting, I went through this a little bit faster. But let's throw it open for questions now, and I suppose Mr. Lee will come in and go from there. But you've gotten the best of what I have for you, and I'm welcome to serve you as you see best from here.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Okay, since we have a small group, for some of you who might not have the time to type, and actually I can open up and just unmute yourself, then ask Mr. Moore directly, and then maybe I can piggyback off your questions, because sometimes it takes a little time to type and my computer is slow. So if you guys don't mind, just turn the speaker back on and then we'll hear your input. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I open the floor to everybody.
That's great. One of the questions that I saw is, how can you get strategic without hiring a coach to point out our weaknesses and guide us on a productive path? My hunch is there are wise people around you that you know who your hero is. You know 2 or 3 people who are already more effective than you are. And you probably can figure out some of the things that they're doing that you're not doing. And you imitate. Success leaves a path. Follow the path. So if the most strategic person that you know initiates more contacts to high volume people, who are the high volume people you can initiate contact with? You can figure out. So somebody I care about was involved with Weight Watchers. And this person is smart and was pretty healthy. And I would see the person from time to time, and happened to be a lady. Most people go to Weight Watchers are ladies. And I enjoyed talking with this woman. And I would, whether she was up a pound or down a pound was frankly none of my business, and not even I'm that stupid to ask. But at Weight Watchers, they would have some interaction. There was a coach, a leader there, a cheerleader. And the cheerleader, you'd weigh, and if you lost 2 ounces, we'd cheer. And if you gained 3 ounces, we'd be quiet. But they would give a talk. And one of the Weight Watcher customers had said, boy, it's hard to lose weight. And the sympathetic, empathetic leader said, yeah, it's hard. Being obese is hard. Being lean is hard. Pick your heart. Some of us got married and some of us said, I'm going to stay married for life. And occasionally, sometimes, some places, the spouse has different plans. Sometimes the spouse up and dies. Well, it's hard to be married. It's hard to be divorced. It's hard to be widowed. You don't have control over all those things, but it's all going to be hard. If you choose to be lean and strong, you'll go to the gym. You'll skip the desserts. You'll snack less. That's hard. Believe me, I'm more well-rounded than I want to be. But also today, I went to the gym and the trainer told me that I did microscopically better on a few machines. I'm doing double what I was 5 years ago, but each one has been microscopically better. And then I went to the swimming pool and I swam just a little bit longer than I had before. I've been to the swimming pool 3 times the last year. And 10 days ago, I did more than I'd done the previous 51 weeks. And then a couple of days later, I did a little bit better. And today I did a little bit better. So you know the right things to do. Do them. Just do it. There will come a point when you run out of ideas, but the first idea is there's a whole host of trainers and coaches and books and podcasts. You probably know a lot of good things. Do what's easy and obvious first.
So more, maybe I have a question. You
Yes,
train
sir.
yourself to be a triathlon. How do you get that motivation to get into the exercise? And it takes perseverance and it's tough. And sometimes, you don't even have time. That's usually my excuse. How do you get yourself into that discipline?
So, Mr. Lee, do you have 100 hours a week? Do you get 24 hours a day? Do you get 7 days a week? Okay, well, I think you and I have the same amount of time. My hunch is we all get the same amount of time. So, my notion is an honest assessment of self. So my objective is very simple. I would like to be relatively healthy if I'm alive in 10 years or in 20 years. So I don't have even though I'm a real estate broker, I don't have so much ego that I hope that I will get on the podium. Actually, one time I did get on the podium. I was the only one in my age class. One time I got on the podium. But mostly my approach, Mr. Lee, is I don't mind if I'm the last to finish, as long as I last until the finish. So, Mr. Lee, for me, I'm not racing against anybody else. I'm racing against the fat, lazy sluggard that's within me. I have the appetite of a 400-pound man. I don't want to be a 400-pound man. So when I do a triathlon, when I get ready, I start and I trot a little bit. I'm so security age. I don't really run, but I trot. And then next week, I trot a little bit further. And next week, I trot a little bit further. And next week, I trot a little bit further. Anybody on this call could do a marathon within a year. You start by running to the stop sign. And then the next day, you run to the stop sign around the corner. And the next day, you run to the stop sign around the corner and another little bit. And you can be running 22 miles within a year. And if you can run 22 miles, you can run a marathon. Whether or not it's worth it is a different thing. It's a matter of who are you called to be?
Jerry, a question.
Okay.
How do I find more opportunities in the commercial market? She's a residential realtor, but she wants to learn about commercial.
So for somebody who wants to switch to commercial, BCIM has a national class called Introduction to Commercial Investment Brokerage. It's like a 2-day class. You might be able to take it online. And roughly speaking, they tell you the 4 food groups: apartments, industrial, office, retail. And they say, here are the 4 major categories. You could do land, you could do hotel, motel, you could do self-storage, but there's 4 major food groups. So you figure out which of those 4 is the best fit for you. And then you figure out how much business do I have to do. Once upon a time, I coached a successful real estate guy who worked in Long Beach, and he wanted to sell apartments in Long Beach. And so we did some research. I said, here's how you figure that out. And if you want things sell in your area, look at how many sales had happened in the last couple of years in that size range. And if you could get 3 or 5% of the market, would that be enough? And we adjusted his goals a little bit so that the skills that he had approaching owners and helping the owners convince that he could do a good job for them. In one sense, it was not intellectually hard. When you're selling income property, you're selling an income stream. And in one sense, it doesn't matter whether the income stream is a McDonald's franchise or an apartment building or an office building. You're telling an income stream. CCIM offers classes that give you the skills. Frankly, in a month, you could learn all the skills that you need. The hard part is it a good fit for you? So in my arena, 98% of the owners are not going to transact this year, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I will dial more than 1,000 millionaires this year. And maybe 3% of my submarket will transact. But you've got to figure out what it takes to become the expert, and then you've got to get in front of the owners. And most people who do commercial investment real estate, they're telemarketers. They're on the phone. If you have a great website, you'll start. If you do social media, most people generate lots of activity, don't work well. It doesn't produce a good result. Cold calling people who have read your articles, seen your presentations, seen that you've done deals. The same skills that make you effective in residential are in commercial. There's still emotion involved. You're just picking a different audience. You know, if you're effective in a $700,000 market zip code and you want to work in $1 million market zip code, you're doing the same skills. You're just aiming for a different farm market. So the commercial and the investment arenas are a lot of the same skills that you're using now. You need a little bit more math, but I promise it's not that hard. It's high school math. You don't have to have anything fancy to do it.
Yeah, Jamie, if Mr. Moore, if I may add a little bit to it, Jamie, we have classes that teaches a CCIM course. We just have it ran through once or twice a year. If you are interested, contact some of the members in the education committee. Then you enroll in the class. There are certain transaction requirements. And actually commercial, I found it's a little bit easier to do than residential because as Mr. Moore pointed out, this businessmen, they are in it with a profit motive. So it's a little bit easier to deal with once they make a decision to go and buy investment properties because it will generate some potential income. So in the future, watch out for some of our flyers, and Fong usually send it out. So then you just watch our flyers or contact our members, and then on your next class, you can enroll and then see if this is something you want to do it. And since you talk about warehouses, a lot of import-export potentials for people trying to find storage warehouse as they import merchandise from China or Taiwan. So I find that market actually is quite. Any more questions from the audience?
Yeah. So somebody said something about CCIM. Let me give a short commercial. The enthusiasts in CCIM say it's like a PhD in real estate. Hot. But it is a little bit like an executive MBA. I made $1 million because of my CCIM, because of commissions that I got that I wouldn't have gotten. Once upon a time, I was at a property, standing in front of a building that had a fence around it. The owner, I didn't know he was the owner, came up, talked to me for a couple of minutes. I handed him my business card. He looked at my business card and he said, "You have a CCIM, I'm going to hire you. What's your name?" That literally happened. And when I closed that building, I closed it with our only living real estate billionaire in the county. Because I had CCIM on the card, first the seller hired me, and then I did a transaction with the buyer. don't do a lot of dual agency, but I did a transaction with the buyer. And while I was going through the CCAM program, I made a transaction. I sold a shopping center to a CCIM who had tried to buy the shopping center before. But because I had the secret handshake, because I had the CCIM on my lapel, I got the transaction that the guy had not been able to do on his own. So the CCIM, for me, it gave me the tools to diagnose, to prescribe what I couldn't even diagnose before. I sold a property one time where people said a polite version of, nice kid, dumb idea. You can't sell that little warehouse for that much money. And I knew how to package it in a way where I could expand the buyers. So I packaged the leased building as a single tenant triple net. And I said, here's the risk. The risk is the tenant who has paid a whole lot of money to renovate this property is going to bail fairly shortly. But since they've paid an immense amount of money, probably they're going to stay, no guarantees. And 1031 buyer paid a premium for the building. The broker didn't even come down and look at it. But because they were buying the idea of the income stream, we got a wonderful premium for my client. And the people who bought the building bought it with some understanding of the risk and reward. And most people in accounting wondered if it was magic. It wasn't magic. I had a mental tool. I had a tool that wasn't available before. I knew how to package it in an extra way. CCAM is, if you're going to quit tomorrow, forget it. If you're going to leave the business in 3 years, forget it. This is your career. If you're going to be in it 5 years or more, get the CCAM. If you're going to pay the price, do it right. Get the high result, not the mediocre result. Well, it's been an honor to serve you. You've got my contact information. I'd love to hear from some of you. If I'm lucky, some of you will find that you can apply this simple idea in a powerful way to give you to leverage your capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your time. I will have Talia come back and do the closing. Talia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moore. This is a very informative presentation. And anyone who would like to contact him, we will have his contact. And also we have a recorded video for this presentation. So thank you so much again, Mr. Moore and Mr. Lee. Thank you.